Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of For What It's Nerd. Today, I want to discuss this new rumor that's come out, or this new news piece that talks about Amazon not being happy with the Mass Effect show that's going to be releasing soon, and basically asking for it to be rewritten. And I want to put this in the larger context of gaming as entertainment other than the actual games themselves, like gaming franchises as movies and as TV shows, etc. We're currently in a scenario where over the past few years, we've had a lot of good examples of how gaming can be adapted for the big screen with all the silver screen. Is that the same thing? The small screen, however you want to put it, without compromising what it is. We currently have the second Mario movie in the cinema, and if you look at the scores for that, sadly I haven't had time to watch it yet. If you look at the scores for that, the critics hate it, the audience loves it. That doesn't necessarily lie, and this seems to be the case with a lot of these franchises, where people will try and modify what's good or what's happened or what's went well with the games, because they think it's not going to appeal to a larger audience because it's too difficult or it's too in-depth or it's too it's not for the masses, basically. And the thing is, not everything is for the masses. Not even within the gaming sphere is everything for the masses. It's made for a specific audience, made with certain people in mind. You know, Mario works because it's building on nostalgia, but also tries to push animation forward, two things that typically aren't seen well by people who are outside of that lens. You know, a lot of people don't love animation unless they're kids. They don't see animation as valid for an adult format, which is wrong, because it can be. Equally so, you know, people who haven't got that nostalgia aren't going to go to that movie regardless. No one's going to go and pick up a Mario movie if you haven't got that nostalgia and you're a 30-year-old anyway. The same is for Mass Effect. Mass Effect is one of the larger gaming series of all time, very similar to Fallout. Fallout stayed true to its lore within reason, and stayed true to its tone and its overall arcing narrative beats, and it worked. It's still working. They're going to get a season 3. We've now got Mass Effect, done by the same studio, which was once upon a time, not long ago, kind of like an accolade. Oh, look, they did Fallout right. Surely they'll do Mass Effect right. And we're now getting this statement that Mass Effect is not friendly enough to the typical audience. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't think Mass Effect is crazy convoluted. It's very simple. There's a secret police organization that defends against threats towards the civilized peoples of these planets, the Asari, the Turians, and the Solarians, and the humans, of course. Obviously, the other ones can be there, but you don't need to necessarily name them off. And there is a guy who's gone rogue that's part of an alien species who isn't a fan of humans and wants rid of them. And this is obviously the initial game. Obviously, it gets more complex thereafter. But even more so to the point, they're not following that. They're following the sense of the universe, but they don't have to make something overly complex within that. They're using what Mass Effect has been and is as a basis for a brand new thing that can link into what Mass Effect 5 is, so to speak. So it's very frustrating to see that people in Hollywood don't understand that if you're dealing with a gaming property, generally leave it alone. Look at what happened with Sonic, right? Sonic was over stylized or over changed to try and do something different. And people said, we don't want this. It was going to flop. It was 100% going to flop. And then they changed it to be a more true to form Sonic. And we're now on Sonic 3 with 4 not far off. That franchise was dead and buried as people saw it. Sometimes the change is worthwhile and sometimes the change is necessary. And look how much that change helped. Look how much that change changed everything for that franchise. You know, it's now on its 4th movie, and it's had a limited series with the Knuckles series as well. It's so frustrating to see great franchises get their shot at being made into a show. Look at Halo, you know, and they don't get there because they're kind of undercut from the off. It's a very frustrating process in seeing something that is good be turned into something lesser to appeal to an audience that was never going to be interested in the show to begin with. I've sat and talked to people about how good Fallout is as a show for what it is, and they still won't watch it because it's not for them. It never was for them. And it's wild to me that we try and do that. We try and accommodate people within that. Look, it's another example here, and this isn't a gaming one, but look at Netflix Daredevil into MCU Daredevil. They were going to try and change it fully to fit a new style of Marvel TV, where they don't really have any kind of connection to the older stuff, and they don't kind of go for the gritty vibe. They go for a more elevated, Disney-fied vibe. Now, of course, Disney has their right to do that, but it wasn't going to work because we've seen those characters in some form already. We don't want to see a different form of those characters. We want to see the same one. And so when they kind of knuckled down on kind of going with the Netflix canon, it worked. People are loving it. Season 2 is out now, and it's going strong because it has those connections to the stories we cared about from the Netflix show. Yes, is it as gruesome in parts? No, not necessarily. Is it as dark in parts? No, not necessarily. I don't think that's necessarily bad. It happens sometimes with these things. Do I think that Fisk being the same Fisk and Matt being the same Matt and Karen having those links to her past in that show is good? Yes. And that's what I think people sometimes get scared of. They get scared of people having it's almost like everyone, they'd rather, and this is how I see it in my head, it's almost like executives and decision makers for these projects would rather see something that is generic enough across the board to appeal to everyone rather than appealing to a big audience and getting them really invested in it. And I understand it's about money and it's about numbers and it's about how many people can you get into a seat to watch a thing, or how many people can you get to pay a subscription to watch a thing, etc. I get that. But sometimes you are so undercutting yourself, because what if, right, let's say you make a really great movie, right, that appeals to, let's say 10% of the population, right? In fact, let's even go lower, 5% of the population. And they enjoy it so much that they go and sit in that seat time and again. They then buy the steel case version. They then buy the merch. They then buy the toys for their kids. They then stream it later on. They then tell their friends about it. And sometimes you're going to get people who wouldn't necessarily watch that thing now watching it because someone who is more invested in that franchise has told them to watch it. That, in my head, is far better. I mean, I'm not a producer. I'm not an executive producer or anything like that. That is so much better in my head than making a somewhat middling movie that makes a return once and then you don't get to make anything else. It's so fascinating to me, and I think I use this as an example quite a lot. The studio, as a show, did a really good job of illustrating what that's kind of like from the actor side, the acting, the production side. Is that these people really want to just make money, and so the artistic side of making film starts to disappear. And I think the studio did a really good job, and I'm really excited for season 2 of that, for showing what is so wrong with the way films are made sometimes. It's not about what people are passionate about, it's about what's going to make the most money. The fact that there are movies being made that are basically big promotional adverts instead of anything worthwhile is wild. There's two sides to the same coin. Sometimes a little bit more of a fun popcorn flick, sort of like Mario, which I imagine it probably is like that, is good. And yes, it does promote the Mario brand, but at the same time, you then want a movie like Dune, for example, where yes, it does promote the brand more, and Dune has become very much part of the cultural consciousness again, but it was first and foremost about making good movies, and it still is. And when the third one comes out, it'll be the same thing. It'll be a good movie, and yes, it'll promote other things, but it's a good movie first, And I think, again, obviously, there's going to be times where there's a conflict of interests in getting both of those to be the case. But it's just wild to me that we're sat here discussing, let's make a Mass Effect show that no other person's going to talk about. Like, no one's going to jump in and watch that randomly because they're going to look at that title and think, what's that about? No one's going to go and watch that unless they're a gaming fan already. So the idea that we're going to kind of strip Mass Effect of what it is because they want to appeal to non-gamers is wild to me, because if the show's good, it will appeal to non-gamers, because we're not like putting a hood up on the screen and asking you to hit the buttons and shoot the freaking shots like you do in the game. We're not asking you to become, Shepard to watch the, you don't have to go around and pick dialogue options. That's not, so that it's already appealing to people who aren't gamers because it's a show. That's how that works, in my head at least. So really, I just want to come on and kind of discuss that, mainly because it was griping to me in the first instance, but also because I think it's so wild that we're sat again ready to make the same mistake of making a show that isn't what its premise, what its basis is in, to try and cash in on a property. It's fascinating to me that we do this so often, and that they don't learn. They don't seem to learn that that's not going to get them anywhere. It's fascinating. But we'll see. Maybe it's not as bad as it sounds. Maybe they didn't mean it quite as strongly as it comes across. And maybe someone will overrule them or veto them or change, or they'll rail against it in some way. Hopefully not the case that we get something bad from this, because a Mass Effect show could be big. It could be very fun. And yeah, I'm hoping this is kind of news that, whilst of course is real, is non-news in the end, because it would be devastating to have a Mass Effect show come out and it'd be terrible, especially if it's meant to be canon to the universe. So we shall see on that front. Of course, I haven't managed to watch Mario, so I'm unable to talk about that as the movie itself, but we are looking forward to Maul Shadow Lord releasing tomorrow, so that's going to be in next week's episode. Keep an eye out for that, and thank you guys as always for listening and watching. I'll see you guys soon for more. Bye guys.